Um, let's talk to Kevin calling in from New York. Kevin, you are live on Talk Heathen. What's up?
Hey, thanks for taking my call. I wanted to bring up the subject of UFOs and aliens.
Cool. Hell yeah.
That leads me, yes, and how that leads me to believe that there may be existence of non-physical beings. Now, starting off with.
Oh, so are we going to talk about the recent report that talked about the UAPs in Congress and stuff? Because those videos definitely show stuff if they're determined to be true videos of real events of stuff that's beyond our current, or at least American understanding of technology and stuff, which is fascinating. But yeah, I don't know if that means non-physical beings are in the picture, but we'll see.
Excited. Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, it brings up the question on whether or not if it's even technology at all. And I want to concentrate more on testimony. And I know that's sort of weak substantially when it comes to evidence, testimony that is. But I want to stress the fact that it's good to look at testimony from people who are commercial pilots, from the military, because it is a fact that when we're looking for how is a person able to, observe the world around them, these pilots are the best that we have. In fact, our lives depend on their observational skills a lot of times.
That's true, but it's also true that human beings make mistakes in every single professional field. Pilots are not excluded from that. So I understand that perhaps we should maybe hold the testimony of someone who's trained in that field maybe higher than maybe you or I, but that doesn't mean that they're not capable of making mistakes, right? Like that doesn't mean that they aren't capable of believing something that's incorrect.
Yeah.
Yes. Now that can be looked at, but we also have to look at the consistency in a certain respect too, because like one of the reports that I want to point out to you is, say, for example, there was an Air Force pilot who reported seeing a UFO make a maneuver such as going from 60,000 feet to 50,000 feet in 0.08 seconds. Now, that's actually consistent with a lot of other reports, and it's important to point out because it breaks laws of physics and it creates G-forces that actually should kill the pilot. According to those speeds.
I get that. Under our current understanding of physics, there's some weird stuff in these videos, and I am not going to contest with that. But when the Wright brothers were making their stuff, there were people that said that it was physically impossible for them to do what they were doing too. So that doesn't mean that it's not necessarily possible. It just means that our current understanding can't exactly explain what we're seeing. And the explanations that, hey, could actually just be human beings in other countries doing stuff is still on the table. My first guess isn't going to be, well, this is aliens or this is some non-physical being. I get it. Based on our current understanding of stuff, shit's weird, but that doesn't mean that we can jump to all this other stuff. At least I'm not ready to personally do that yet.
Yeah, Kevin, I want to try and get to the meat of this, and I want to talk about a couple of things. First of all, anecdotal evidence isn't data. It can be useful for collecting the experiences of people, but that's not what multiple anecdotes mean. Second, you made this like assertion about like it breaks the laws of physics and in a way that the pilot would have died. And I assume that's where you go. Therefore, it would need to be an immaterial person. We already know aircraft without pilots exist, and it seems to me you haven't even you've presupposed once again that there is an aircraft, therefore there's a pilot, when we already know there is totally pilotless stuff out there. But what it comes down to is this: you believe that UFOs in some way defend a proposition that there are immaterial beings. What is a UFO, Kevin?
It's an unidentified flying object. But you see,
so how in the world can it defend anything like that? because we don't know what the hell we were looking at. We don't know, first of all, the validity of any of these things, or there's literally some of these UFOs, not all of them, I know, because last time I brought it up, people were acting like I was saying it, but where they've gone, we haven't actually ruled out that there was a bug inside the sensor of the imaging device, and that's why, since we were only able to see this on radar or whatever else. Also, I am never shocked the level to which Kevin, wait a second. Kevin, wait a second. I promise I'll give you back I'll give it back to you in a second. I am never ever shocked by the way people's memories enhance themselves to become a more interesting story, or the way people whole cloth make up stuff to be a more interesting person. Even those people who are experts, and you're talking about a person whose father is in the military, multiple brothers were in the military. I tried to join the military but I couldn't because of health stuff, and have been surrounded by the military my whole life. And while there are admirable things about being in the military, the idea that because you might get some expertise, you're now not just going to lie or just be confident in your own assertions because you have your perceived expertise. We have a little thing called Dunning-Kruger that totally debunks that idea too. So go ahead and tell me how something that is unidentified can justify any proposition in a way that you would accept it as something to believe in.
Well, it's just the thing that I know that just pointing out one or two things as monumental would be faulty in thinking that, oh yes, it's going to be true then, because I know that logically, in terms of these UFOs, these things that we don't understand, there might be a technology that might negate the atmospheric brushback that these things perform, at the speeds that they're going. But
at the speeds they appear to be going,
that still doesn't explain other consistent reports of these aerial crafts going in and out of the ocean without so much of a splash. Because it follows logically that two physical objects coming together, especially when there's speed involved, causes a reaction. And we don't see that when
Kevin, okay, fine.
Navy reports of these UFOs.
Fine, I accept your assertions, not as truth, but that you go, okay, that's the case. How are you going to test it? Because I'm not going to accept it until you do. How are you going to test this assertion? Because you've gone, listen, there's nothing wrong with going, ooh, nothing has explained this concept. I think it might be this. What then is a problem is if you go, I think it might be this, and I'm really impressed with what I came up with, so I'm going to start telling people it's this, and that's wrong. The next step after a hypothesis, which is all you have here, is testing. So how do you mean to test it? And if you don't have a method to test it, do you understand that not only should everybody reject the idea until you have tested it, but you should actually let go of it until you've come up with a method of testing, or spend your whole life coming up with how to test it? I'm fine with that too.
Well, sorry to fail you when it comes to the testing of this all, but people can. I mean, looking at the consistency of it really denotes that, yes, that one person might have been mistaken, but yes, here it is happening again. You know what I mean? But I just really called to talk about what I thought about it, really.
Yeah, and the thing is, man, we want to talk to people about what they believe and why, and it sounds like the beginning of this call, I think you were a little more confident in this, and this is fine. And by the way, honestly, this is probably the outcome we want, but we want you to acknowledge at the very least that you merely have a hypothesis, and that while you feel compelled by a lack of evidence to use it like it is evidence, I'd really love it if you would acknowledge that nobody should also accept that too, and that you doing so is in and of itself still irresponsible.
Well, when we're talking about evidence here, I mean, there's only maybe 1 or 2 points that I made, and there's many more to be made. And
should
so
anybody
just draw these
besides
conclusions
should
from what
anybody
I just
besides
told
you believe that UFOs demonstrate the existence of immaterial beings?
Well, it's something interesting. That's all I can say.
Okay, you can say it's interesting, but you could also answer the question: should anybody believe that that is the case?
Sure, because I mean, I told you something that
no, they shouldn't, because you have not. You even said by your words were, "I don't have anything for you as far as a test goes." It was something like that. You have a hypothesis.
Well, yeah, I mean,
people believe hypotheses before there is a good reason to believe them.
There's characteristics, there's measurements that people can take out there. I'm not an expert on aerodynamics.
Trust me, I hadn't mistaken you for one. Dan, you're still muted. I don't mean, sorry, Kevin. I'm also from New York, so I hope you appreciate the sarcasm. Here's what I want to do, Kevin, is say, come back when you have a method of testing and you have evidence, not multiple anecdotes. The plural of anecdote is not data. All right. And hopefully we can get Dan unmuted here.
Yeah, I'm unmuted here. I don't know what was happening there. But you know what I wanted to point out was on my show on Friday, Kevin, somebody posited to me that the UFOs we were seeing was a result of demonic illusions. Okay. And that explanation has just as much explanatory power as non-physical beings. It has just as much explanatory power as angels. It has just as explanatory power as fairies. Yes, it is a possibility, but the evidence towards one being that over another explanation just isn't there. What we do have is lots of stories in the past of people freaking out and looking at other technologies and seeing them as godlike or of immaterial beings, but actually being the result of a civilization that had more advanced research in that particular field. And this could be, I think this has more merit to being that than to any of those other explanations so far. I agree. We don't have all the answers yet, and there's a lot of stuff we don't know, but it's going to be, it's going to take a little bit more before I can jump to one of those other kinds of otherworldly explanations rather than ones that exist within the natural world that I already know we can look at and have proven to have happened in the past. So that's how I feel about that. Again, sorry about the mic stuff. I don't know what's going on, but yeah, that's how I feel. And honestly, I want to go ahead and get to another caller here as well. We're going a little long on this one, but thanks, Kevin, for talking to us.